What's going on, guys? Welcome in. Farzin Vasugian here with you on a Monday night. Hope you're all having a great start to your week. This is the Chiefs Zone Podcast. Appreciate all of you guys watching live on Facebook, YouTube, X, Instagram, wherever it is you are taking in the podcast. And for all of you listening on the archive version, which are also available on all those social media sites, as well as Apple, Spotify, all the other podcasting websites. Appreciate all of you guys joining me on this Monday night here as we've got some Chiefs news to get into. We have an update on Felix Anudike-Uzomah. He has been placed on injured reserve, and there's a lot of reaction to this story, so we'll talk about that soon. Hollywood Brown returned to practice. Great news for Kansas City. And some other news and notes when it comes to Chiefs injuries that we will get into here in just a few moments. Once again, I'm Farzin Vasugian. Appreciate all of you guys joining me live on the Chiefs Zone Podcast. You guys can be part of the conversation here tonight. Please don't be shy. Comment below. Ask whatever questions you have. We didn't have a Red Friday Q&A live chat last week because there was a game on Friday. Same thing for this week. So I'd be willing to take some extra questions and comments if you guys have any of those as we go on throughout the night here. Like I said, a lot of things to get into. Before we get into all of that, I want to let you know this podcast is brought to you by SeatGeek. That is where I get all of my sports tickets, concerts, whatever event I want to attend. I get it from SeatGeek. As a matter of fact, this Friday's Chiefs preseason game, I will be there for that. Thanks to my friends over at SeatGeek. And if you guys want to attend any of the football action, whether it's Chiefs, KU, K-State, Mizzou, all of that coming up this weekend, go to SeatGeek.com, get your tickets there. New customers can enter my promo code Farzin and save $20 off their first purchase from SeatGeek. Once again, SeatGeek.com at checkout. New customers can put in my promo code Farzin and save $20 off their first order from SeatGeek. All right. Let's get right into it here as the breaking news of the day from Kansas City. Felix Anudike-Uzomah has been placed on IR. Andy Reid said it's a strained hamstring, and he is expected to be out for the season. I know a lot of people are questioning the injury and how that leads to a season-ending IR move there. And I've seen some of the speculation. People are wondering if this is a move where Kansas City just doesn't feel like they want to put him on the 53-man roster. I've seen that speculation there as well. I've thought about this earlier today, and I've seen some people say whether there's a possibility that the team might come to some sort of an injury settlement with FAU. You've seen that before in the NFL. I wouldn't say it's common. I wouldn't say it's rare either. It doesn't happen too often, but we have seen those things before in the NFL. I won't dismiss that possibility. But a lot of people are having a big conversation about this because this is your first round draft pick from 2 years ago. He's entering year 3, and he just has not panned out for you. When you look at his career numbers, they're not the best. He has 3 career sacks, 4 if you include the one sack he had in the playoffs this past postseason against Houston. But in general, he just has not played much. When you look at the total number of pressures, according to Pro Football Focus, this past year he had 15. That's not very ideal for someone who was your first-round draft pick. When you just look at career numbers, in terms of total snaps that he's played with the Chiefs, 550 snaps. That is fairly low. He's played 25% of the defensive snaps in the regular season. In the playoffs, he's appeared in 4 playoff games. He played in Super Bowl 58, the only playoff game he played in that postseason when the Chiefs had their run to winning Super Bowl 58. He just played in that Super Bowl, and he only played 7 snaps in that game. Played a total of 33 snaps in the 4 games he's appeared in. 3 other games, he was inactive for. Because remember, the Chiefs, the year they won Super Bowl 58, they played 4 postseason games that year. When I'm looking at the total number of snaps he's had in his career, there are only 2 games where he's played more than 70% of the snaps on defense. Both of them were Week 18 games. last in 2023 against the Chargers. The 2023 season, technically it happened on 2024. And then this past year when the Chiefs rested their starters against the Broncos, he played 70.3% of the snaps against the Broncos. He played 73.5% of the snaps against the Chargers. That's the only time FAU's ever played more than 70% of the defensive snaps from the Chiefs in a game. And that's when the Chiefs put in their backups. Again, not ideal for your first round draft pick. You guys know me. I don't like to jump the gun. And I know in the social media era where every sports fan wants instant gratification, it's hard to see a lot of fans be patient with draft picks and development, that kind of thing. I try to be very patient with that stuff. The red flag for me this preseason was seeing FAU play in the second half of some of these preseason games. Now, I know the Chiefs rested a lot of their starters. Either they rested them or they played very, very, very few snaps against the Seahawks Friday night. But regardless, FAU was playing in the second half of both of these preseason games. Week 1 against the Cardinals and this past Friday against the Seahawks. When your first round draft pick from 2 years ago entering year 3 at the edge rusher position, really for any position, as long as he's a first round draft pick, if he's playing in the second half of preseason games, I mean, the question needs to be realistically, what is the future for this guy? Unfortunately, he suffered this injury, and therefore we won't really know what improvements he will have made. But the fact that he's in the second half of these preseason games and was not really playing well in those situations either, I just don't know realistically what Kansas City could have expected from him. When I put my 53-man roster projection for the Chiefs about a week and a half ago, I did not have FAU on it. Not because I anticipated this injury, but I just felt like I don't know if there was any room for him, especially when they extend George Karlaftis, when they draft a guy like Ashton Gelati. They still have Mike Dana around. They brought back Charles Omenihu. I truly believe, and I really like Charles Omenihu, and I'm excited to see what Ashton Gelati is going to do his rookie season and for the duration of his time in Kansas City, which hopefully is going to be a long time because I think the Chiefs did get a really good pickup there in the third round. But I truly do believe, and I'll say this on record, I'll stand by it. I mean, it's a hypothetical, so we can't really dwell on this too much, but I truly do feel that if FAU lived up to expectations, I still think George Karlaftis would have got the extension, but I don't know if the Chiefs would have re-signed Charles Omenihu or drafted Ashton Gelati. Maybe Mike Dana would have still gotten some sort of an extension. I don't know. Maybe we can find that out in an alternate universe, but at the end of the day, I think that if FAU lived up to his status as a first-round draft pick, I don't think the Chiefs would have drafted Gelati. I don't think the Chiefs would have brought back Charles Omenihu. But because FAU has, let's be honest at this point, because he's been a bust, the Chiefs have had to bring back a couple of these defensive ends. They've had to draft Ashton Gelati because they don't feel pretty comfortable with him. Here's something that I do want to address here, because a lot of people are talking about that 2023 draft. It was in Kansas City, and I believe FAU was in attendance, like a fan, like anyone else. I was a little surprised he was not back there in the green room, but neither here nor there. A lot of people believe that the Chiefs, not only did Clark Hunt really want that first-round draft pick because it was a special moment in Kansas City to have the draft in Kansas City and be able to have the first-round draft pick announcement. Clark Hunt came out there with the Super Bowl 57 trophy, placed it on one of the stands there before announcing the FAU draft selection. I mean, it was a special moment. And now, I've said this before. As long as the position, the player was not a quarterback, a kicker, or a punter, you could have selected anyone, and it would have been crazy. Obviously, what I'm referring to is the backstory that FAU is a Kansas City kid, grew up in Kansas City. He talked about growing up in the Matt Castle era. Remember that era of football in Kansas City? Oh, yeah, the good old days of some of the down years of Chiefs football prior to Andy Reid's arrival and eventually Patrick Mahomes. But he talked about that. I mean, this guy's a KC kid. He grew up a Kansas City Chiefs fan. So this was a cool story. He played college ball not too far from here, just a couple of hours west, going to Kansas State. So this was a cool story here. What I'm referring to is the fact that a lot of people believe that the Chiefs kind of forced this draft pick just so they can say they hosted the draft and they drafted a local kid from Kansas City, played at college ball at Kansas State, was a Wildcat. Listen, man, given the Chiefs and the position they're in as a dynasty, as one of the best teams in the NFL, I don't think they would ever force this kind of draft selection. I mean, Clark Hunt is very serious and always wants it to be about business. I think FAU was being looked at by some teams around the 31st pick. Obviously, was on the brink of going into the second round, but the Chiefs decided to take him, and unfortunately, just hasn't panned out. Do I think the Chiefs forced that storyline? You know, the Casey kid and all that. Listen, I can't dismiss it entirely, but I don't think a professional football team would ever want to do something like that. Did it play a little bit of a role? Maybe, but at the end of the day, all 32 NFL teams, these are professionally run organizations. And when the Chiefs are as good as they are, they always want the best. They don't want to get someone just because they're the local kid. I'm seeing a lot of people say that. Again, I can't dismiss it entirely, but I think we have to be completely honest here and have an honest conversation about all of this. And whether the Chiefs forced this pick or not because of the fact he's from Kansas City, FAU is a bust. And listen, that's okay. You're not going to hit on every single draft pick. Find me one general manager. Find me one NFL team that's hit on every single first-round draft pick. You're not going to find it. I know in years past, and even people still say it today, especially with draft picks like FAU and Sky Moore, and I know Clyde Edwards-Helaire has been brought up as well, given the Chiefs let him go last year. You always hear fans talk about, well, we could have drafted this player or we could have traded down, that kind of thing. Listen, man, no one ever is batting 1,000 with these things, okay? There's no NFL team that has a 100% success rate. The Chiefs have had one of the better drafts in the NFL over the last few years. They've been one of the more successful teams in producing players, but not always going to be the case. That 2022 draft class gets a lot of hype and a lot of praise from Brett Veach. We know that draft class has not necessarily been perfect. Sky Moore was part of that draft class, and we'll see what happens to Sky Moore in about a little over a week when the Chiefs and the rest of the NFL teams have to trim their roster to 53 players. But it is, I think it is fair to say at this point, considering he's on season-ending IR, you can just go ahead and consider this his third season. FAU is a bust. And listen, I was pulling for the kid. Like all of you guys, I think everyone was excited. Maybe you're a Jayhawk or a Missouri Tiger, and you're like, oh, really? A Wildcat? Okay, but at the end of the day, he's a Casey kid. I mean, he went to go play college ball somewhere. And K-State was willing to give him that scholarship, and he came back to the Chiefs. So everyone's always pulling for these kinds of stories, are they not? I mean, look at Travis Kelce. He was talking about on the docuseries The Kingdom. He talked about how he really wanted to play in Cleveland. What a great story that would have been for him if he had gotten drafted in Cleveland. Everyone wants to play for their favorite team or for the team they grew up 10, 15, 20 miles away from. FAU, he kind of hit the NFL jackpot getting drafted by his favorite team. Not a lot of players get drafted by their favorite teams. Joe Burrow grew up a Chiefs fan. Patrick Mahomes grew up a Dallas Cowboys fan. Do you not think that a small part of them wanted to be drafted by their favorite teams? Of course, a lot of players want that, but it doesn't always work out that way. In fact, very rarely does it pan out that way. So, again, I know everyone's going to have their opinions about whether or not the Chiefs maybe forced that move, but this was a draft selection that should not have been made. And when you just look at FAU overall, his production does not even live up to the status of a day 2 draft pick, a second or a third round pick. This is a guy who's performing like a day 3 draft selection. That's how big of a miss this was for Kansas City. So I think the next question here is, what's next? Is it going to be an injury settlement where they come to terms on something and they let FAU walk? Perhaps, possibly. Or do they just let him stay on IR for the 2025 season and they revisit what they want to do with him in 2026? I just don't know at this point if this is someone who's going to play for the team in 2026. Because if you keep him around, my question then is, what do you expect from him? I know he's on a rookie deal, so that's maybe something for the Chiefs to consider. The fact that he's on a rookie deal, and maybe that'd be a little easier to work with, but I'm just not sure if that would be even worth keeping around for that fourth season. James says, I'm tired of everyone saying FAU, he is a bust. He's going in his third year. Yeah. For a second, I thought you said you're tired of people saying he is a bust. I was going to say, I mean, what do you want people to say at this point? But I misread your comment. John says, why is the injury considered season ending? Yeah, this one, I don't have an answer for you. It's a strained hamstring. I don't know. I'm not quite sure. Listen, we've seen this before. I remember Jalen Watson. He was placed on IR and people thought his season was over with. That's just what's being reported. So I can only go off what's being said by those who are there, for those who were at the press conference. But the report is that he's done for the season. Could that change? Perhaps. Robert says FAU was never a first round level player. I always like giving draft picks a chance, but let's be realistic. Yeah, I'm the same way. I think you gotta give every draft pick, especially those that are early, because teams tend to give those players extra chances. But year three, forget the injury. In year three of the preseason, he's playing in the second half of preseason games. No first round draft pick should be playing in the second half of preseason games in year three. Year one, sure. I wouldn't say I would expect that, but that wouldn't shock me. If you're a preschool teacher and you hold a kid back and he comes back, he's still struggling with red, blue, and green colors, you got your mind made up. It's an interesting little comparison there, Jeremy. Yeah, I'm seeing a few other people say he's a bust. Joey comparing him to Todd Blackledge. Yeah. I saw someone on Facebook compare him to Bubba Starling. Ouch. I'm not pushing back against that. It's just a little harsh. I mean, Bubba Starling, I would say, had far more upside and far more hype than FAU. But okay, point made. I get the point there. Imagine if this organization could consistently hit on high round draft picks. So perplexing. Yeah, Thomas, I agree with you to an extent. The Chiefs haven't necessarily hit on a lot of their first round picks. I'm just trying to think. Eric Fisher, okay. I mean, that entire draft class was bad, but keep in mind, that's also a draft class where DeAndre Hopkins almost fell out of the first round, if I recall correctly. Travis Kelce was an early third round pick. So it kind of makes you wonder, what was up with those guys, or those two players, and the rest of the players who were drafted before them. 2014, I don't think the Chiefs had a first round pick. They traded that for Alex Smith. 2014 was D Ford. Yeah, they traded 2 seconds, I think, for Alex Smith, if I remember correctly. 2015, who was Kansas City's 2015 first round pick? I actually have to look that up. I want to try to get this without looking it up. I'm not looking at the chat. 2015's first round pick. It was Eric Fisher, D Ford. Who was it in 2015? Chris Jones and Tyreek Hill were non-first round picks the following year. The Chiefs didn't have a 2016 pick. Okay, I have to look it up because I don't know. Marcus Peters, that's who it was. Marcus Peters. Yeah, I would have never guessed that. Never guessed that. Marcus Peters had a couple of good seasons in Kansas City. But after Marcus Peters, like I mentioned, 2016, no first round pick. The Chiefs traded out of the first round. 2017, obviously Patrick Mahomes. 2018, no first round pick because they traded that to get Mahomes. So their first pick was in the second round. That was Breland Speaks. He did not last long in the NFL. He's had success outside of the NFL, but never had it in the NFL. Same story in 2019. They traded out of the first round about a day or two before the draft to get Frank Clark. So their second round picks were McCole Hardman and Juan Thornhill. Maybe it didn't pan out great, but hey, I mean, McCole had some moments, made the Pro Bowl as a punt returner his first year, rookie year. And then, of course, came back for a second stint and had the game-winning touchdown in Super Bowl 58. Clyde Edwards-Helaire in 2020, no first-round pick in 2021. That was to get Orlando Brown. So their first pick was Nick Bolton and Creed Humphrey. Those were their second-round picks. I would say that definitely panned out better than some other second-round picks in years past. 2022, McDuffie, Karlaftis, no need to go over that. Obviously, home run hits there. FAU in 2023, Xavier Worthy last year, Josh Simmons this year. A little too early to judge on Worthy and Simmons, though it seems like Worthy's on pace to do well. We'll see with Simmons. Yeah, it's been kind of up and down. It's either been really good or really bad with first-round picks in Kansas City. Yeah, it has been kind of up and down. And the Chiefs, I mean, in some years, they haven't been too afraid of trading away first-round draft picks, but each of the last 3 or 4 years, rather, they have used their first-round draft picks. They had 2 a few years ago because of the Tyreek Hill trade. So, yeah, it has been kind of up and down. Yolanda says sometimes you just have to cut your losses. Yeah, just take an L on this one, move on. Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year to JP Benchwriter. Yeah, that's unfortunate. Andrew says, what are my thoughts on Kingsley Suamata? Yeah, he didn't look great last week against Seattle. I'll be honest, I'm kind of on edge a little bit with Kingsley Suamata. Yeah, not 100% sure what the realistic expectation is from the coaches. I know Andy Reid said good things about him today. I mean, listen, Andy Reid's never going to say anything bad about anyone publicly. I know Andy Reid's getting a lot of criticism, by the way, when he praised Sky Moore. For those who didn't get a chance to see this, I posted this, and Sky Moore, who had the punt return touchdown, that came after a total of 3 drops/fumbles on offense and special teams combined. Andy Reid said that's not like him. No, I mean, I disagree, obviously. But number one, Andy Reid's never going to publicly say anything negative about anyone. And number 2, I think part of it is, you got to at least try to put some sort of a trade value on Sky Moore, I suppose. I'll tell you right now, he's a second-round pick who just hasn't panned out well. If you can get a 7th for him, so be it. I'll take that. I would not be upset about that at all. Yeah, Dion was also wanting to get in on Kingsley Suamata. He hasn't really been good. Thomas says Breland Speaks, McCole, Sky Moore with Pickens on the board. Yeah, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, FAU can't sustain with consistent high run misses. They definitely need to be better about some of that. I agree. I still think Brett Veach is one of the better GMs in the NFL. I mean, just look at some of the. I think he deserves a lot of credit for 2022 and 2023. I know 23 really your only big pick from that draft class was Rashee Rice, and sure he had that injury, so I guess the jury's still out on Rice to prove himself to be a top tier receiver, and I think he'll be able to prove that this year. We'll see what happens with the suspension. It seems like it's going to drag out for quite some time, but man, I mean, he has he not done his best to put together a good team, especially on the defensive side of the football after trading Tyreek Hill? I was going to say, it feels like there have been more offensive misses than defense, but it's kind of been similar. It's been about 50-50. Sky Moore had just one big play in the Super Bowl. To me, other than that, he's been about. Yeah, no, I agree with you, Derek, for sure. Hopefully, the Chiefs can learn from these experiences. I guess you can add Kingsley Suamataia to that list. Maybe not yet, but because they're trying him at guard. But man, it's been a struggle for sure with some of these draft selections. Yeah, a lot of you guys are also commenting about Hollywood Brown here. Hollywood Brown dealt with an ankle injury earlier this month in training camp, and he returned to practice today, which was good news. Listen, let me just say this about Hollywood Brown. I know he has an injury history. I think the Chiefs brought him back for two reasons. Number one, at the time, that was the same day when the report came out about Xavier Worthy and his incident involving his ex-fiance. I think that might have played a role. The second reason, I think you're also looking at Rashee Rice and the possibility of his suspension, which, as I said a moment ago, we don't know the timeline of that or how long this could really go on for. Could we get an announcement the Tuesday before week 5? Maybe. Who knows at this point? We just have to assume he'll be here for now, but I suppose we're going to get an answer at some point next month, towards the end of the month. But I think one big reason why Hollywood Brown decided to come back and why the Chiefs wanted to bring him back, he has good rapport with the wide receivers and Patrick Mahomes all offseason last year in OTAs and in mandatory minicamp and in training camp. We heard all about it. Patrick Mahomes and Hollywood Brown, I mean, they've built a lot of chemistry on the field. We heard that on and on until that very first preseason snap last year. I think that was in Jacksonville where Hollywood Brown had that collarbone injury, which was, or no, not a collarbone, the shoulder injury. I don't remember the exact name specifically, but I think it was very similar to Tyreek Hill, which also happened in that same stadium early in the 2019 season. So they brought him back also when you consider his skill set. When you consider Hollywood Brown has that kind of skill set and how that bodes well in Andy Reid's offensive scheme, I think it's worth it to bring him back on a 1-year deal. And I think Kansas City made the right move there. Sure, he's been out of action for a couple of weeks, but he's back now, which is good. I think he was limited, but was able to practice in some of the full team drills there. So as long as he's ready for week 1, that's my biggest thing right there. Because all offseason last year, we talked about Hollywood Brown, Rashee Rice, Xavier Worthy, the three of them together, and just what kind of a trio they can really turn into, and how that would help Travis Kelce, how that would help Isaiah Pacheco. Unfortunately, the injury bug went around, so we never really saw that. We don't know what's going on with Rice's suspension, but if Worthy and Hollywood can stay healthy, and if they can figure out Rice's suspension, apparently it's going to be a double-digit game suspension, 10 games, apparently. If they can reduce that to 8 or 6, he can come back for that second half of the season towards the end and help give the Chiefs a nice little push as they try to attain the top seed in the AFC and then get ready for the playoffs. Because that'd be significant for Patrick Mahomes and this offense if he has Xavier Worthy, Hollywood Brown, and Rashee Rice. If Travis Kelce, who we've heard a lot about him and trying to improve physically, and he's looked faster and all of that in training camp, that's great, but we won't really know until we really see that in week 1 against the Chargers, how he looks. I mean, those first 4 games, that's going to be a big test for everyone on the team, including Travis Kelce. So we'll have a really good idea as to whether or not all of that training, the improvement in physicality, the weight loss, all of that stuff, if that's really going to make a difference for him or not. I think this is going to help the Chiefs backfield as well with Isaiah Pacheco, Kareem Hunt. I know Brashard Smith. I was listening on ESPN radio today. Dude, on Freddie and Harry, they were hyping up Brashard Smith, which, you know, it's kind of funny because Rashard Smith's been getting some mixed reviews here in Kansas City so far. I disagree with a lot of the negative takes on Rashard Smith. I think he'll be good for Kansas City, but man, he even your 7th round rookie is getting some hype in the national media there. So I was a little encouraged to hear that, but Kansas City's got a lot of weapons this year to work with. It just comes down to that offensive line there. And I think that's what's important for Kansas City. Let me get back to the injury notes here. I see some more questions here from you guys. I'll get to you guys very soon. Let me just get some of these other injury news and notes out of the way. Jack Cochran has a bone bruise on his knee. Offensive tackle Ethan Driscoll with an appendix. Mike Edwards has a hamstring. Nazeeh Johnson with a shoulder. Omar Norman Lott is dealing with an ankle injury. And Jalen Royals, the rookie wide receiver from the 4th round, he's got knee tendonitis. Doesn't appear to be anything too serious, but there's a little bit of a concern there. So, and by the way, I know a lot of people are talking about Brian Robinson. The Commanders, the rumor is that he was going, that the Commanders were trying to shop him, but now it seems like, according to ESPN, he may be cut if there's no trade partner. So that is certainly something to keep an eye on here in the coming days, because I've seen some Chiefs fans calling for the team to try to bring in the running back Brian Robinson from Washington. So we'll see how that goes. One other note to mention here: Andy Reid did say in his press conference today that the starters will play. Now, he didn't mention specifically if Mahomes would play. He just said the starters. And I have mixed feelings on that one. I understand the Chiefs keeping their players out, and I know there's been some conversation with some of these injuries piling up a little bit here. And maybe that's why Andy Reid decided to hold off on some of the starters playing in that game. But as long as it's a series, remember back when the NFL had 4 preseason games, some teams would play their starters in that 4th preseason game, but mid-drive, you'd see the quarterbacks and some other players come off the field. I would not be upset at all if Andy Reid did anything like that. I don't really need to see Mahomes for more than a drive, honestly. I would like for the Chiefs, or for the Bears rather, to not fumble the opening kickoff, because what happened in Arizona is their kick returner fumbled the opening kickoff, and Mahomes was basically in the red zone already, and it was a very short and quick touchdown drive. My biggest thing is I wanted to see Mahomes have a long drive going downfield and trying to utilize guys like Jalen Royals and Tyquan Thornton, but we didn't have a chance to see Mahomes work with those 2 receivers who have been getting a lot of hype in training camp. So maybe we get to see that in Friday's game against Chicago. That's something to just kind of look out for. So the word is from Andy Reid that the starters will play. To what extent, and will Mahomes be part of that starting unit that plays? We'll find out on Friday's game, I suppose. Bob says the most he's going to get is 2 games. I assume you mean Rashee Rice's suspension. I would be shocked. I thought it was going to be 2 to 4 games, but given the recent reports of 10 games or double-digit games at the most, I'd be pleasantly surprised if it was 2 games. Unless you're talking about somebody else. They may need to get some help in the secondary with these injuries. Anthony says, yeah, I agree with you, Anthony, and I posted about that today because you lost Deion Bush last year. You have Mike Edwards right now injured. A couple of cornerbacks, Nazeeh Johnson and Noel Williams, although Andy Reid did not mention Noel Williams today. But it seemed like that was a little bit of a concern there for just a moment. But it appears Noel Williams will be okay. Too much stock in the preseason. Baltimore went 5 to 6 years undefeated in the preseason. Here's my thing with the preseason. And I've heard a lot of people say different variations of this comment, but and I've said this as well. The final score doesn't really matter, but the games don't count. But what happens on the field matters. Absolutely matters. So I think that's just something to keep in mind. For instance, the Chiefs held a lot of starters out, and the starters who did not play more than 7 snaps. And I'm seeing all these people. I addressed this on Saturday morning's podcast. I'm seeing a lot of people panicking. Oh no, we didn't look good. The Chiefs' run defense was bad. Offensively, we're struggling. A lot of starters were out, and Seattle had some of their starters. What I would be concerned about is, for example, a couple of weeks ago when Cincinnati, they had their starters on the field and Philadelphia used their backups. Philadelphia's second string offensive players just dog walked Cincinnati's backups. I would be concerned if anything like that happened with Kansas City. Remember Todd Haley several years ago had his starters late in the game, his first year with the Chiefs in a preseason game, and they were getting just outplayed by, I think it was Green Bay's backups. Things like that is what I'd be concerned about in the preseason. Otherwise, I don't put too much stock. No one should ever put too much stock in preseason games. I always say this: the same year Detroit went 0-16 in the regular season, they went 4-0 in the preseason. So that's all the evidence you need that you can't ever take the preseason too seriously. Yeah, I think they will have 4 tight ends, Bob. Minimum 3. How about the Chicago Bears 38-0? Yeah, but again, like I was saying, Noah, a moment ago, Buffalo did not have Josh Allen. They didn't have James Cook. I mean, they had a lot of players who were not playing in that game either. So that's something to consider. Yeah, I mean, again, I have a couple of friends who are Bengals fans, and I was seeing their comments during the game. They were not happy at all. Player of the week, Gray says on Instagram, I don't know if we really do a player of the week. Not in the preseason. Noah on Instagram says must have just not proved enough in his limited time in practice. So sell now, value, definitely a smart outlook for FAU. What would a team trade for FAU? And obviously, it would not be now. It would have to be in the future, which I think really decreases his value even more. I mean, what would you get for him? Yeah, I think Robert Tanyan's going to make the team. I'm curious to see about Jake Browningstool because he got a lot of looks from Patrick Mahomes in training camp, and I understand training camp a whole different feel in preseason games, and obviously Browningstool was injured and now he's back. I wonder if that 4th tight end spot is between Browningstool and possibly the player who the Chiefs drafted last year in the 4th round, the tight end. His name escapes my mind right now. I'm looking it up. Jared Wiley, who they got, the kid from TCU. I'd be very curious to see if the 4th tight end spot is between those 2 players there. Yeah, listen, Sky Moore looked good on that punt return. I mean, I know we all have our opinions about Sky Moore. I don't know anyone that is team Sky Moore all the way. I think if you ask any Chiefs fan for their opinion on Sky Moore, it's more negative than positive. But on that punt return like there, he looked really good. And I said this Saturday morning, I'll say it again in case you missed it. If Sky Moore looks like that, and the way he looked on that punt return, the scouting report kind of talked about that. Able to have that burst of speed from time to time. He's able to make defenders miss, able to find a crease and take advantage of some lanes, that kind of thing. Able to make defenders miss. It didn't necessarily do that on that punt return, but that's what the scouting report said about him a few years ago. If that Sky Moore shows up, hell yeah. I want the Chiefs to keep that guy on the 53-man roster, but I think we're at a point now where we've seen enough to know that we're not going to get that Sky Moore on a consistent basis because the one thing he struggles with, the drops. And if you struggle with that consistently, it's kind of hard to utilize all of the other skill sets that you have. Jeremy says they're going to try to hold Rice feet to the fire for Henry Ruggs and the leaving scene with the bags. What was in the bags? Yeah, I know they've talked about what was in the vehicle and all of that stuff. I don't know if they were able to prove who had been under the influence or whatnot. Listen, I've said this before. I have no tolerance for people who get behind the wheel and do stuff like that. Whether it's Rashee Rice, Britt Reed, Henry Ruggs. I've said before, the NFL needs to make a statement with this. I would hate for that to be with Rashee Rice. And I've also criticized the NFL in the past. I think the NFL is honestly really soft when it comes to some of their punishments. I feel like if they were more harsher, more stricter on these kinds of things and they handed out tougher consequences, I feel like players would really watch what they do and not mess around. Again, I would hate for Rashee Rice to be used as the poster boy or as the example for this, but if the NFL's got to make a statement for players not screwing up behind the wheel, I'm not gonna sit here and criticize the NFL for it. I understand the NFLPA wants to have a consistent precedent here, and they also want to fight for their guy. I get that 100%, as they should. I don't want Rice to be suspended long term. No Chiefs fan does, but listen, the NFL has dealt with criticism in the past with players getting so many DUIs. The NFL has even offered to pay for cab or Uber services. I know this is not a DUI specifically here. That's not the main issue at hand, but the NFL's got to put down the hammer at some point, especially when NFL players, they make all this money and they have every reason to not screw up. Rashee Rice was asked, and this was a great question by someone in the media. I don't remember who it was, but the question was, what was the learning lesson from all of this? And Rice said, look, I'm playing in the best place possible. I'm playing with the best quarterback possible. You don't ever get to play for Andy Reid and play with a quarterback like Patrick Mahomes anywhere else. So, and he's right. Yeah, there's a possibility he could have screwed that up. I think one key thing to keep in mind with this Rashee Rice investigation, as it's, I shouldn't say investigation, but I guess the NFL trying to come down with their suspension here and trying to pick how many games it's going to be. The felony charges is one thing. The other thing I'm seeing people debate here is, oh, well, he could have killed someone or done serious damage to somebody. Sure, but I think in a lot of these cases here, you don't suspend someone on what could have happened. You hand out consequences on what did happen. Now, I'm no legal expert. I'm not going to sit here and say how really at the end of the day all of that pans out. I know Rice's legal team is involved in all of this. The NFLPA is trying to fight for Rice here. Because I was kind of in the thought of, look, take a 4 to 6 game suspension and get it over with. As tough as the first 4 games are, I would rather Rice be available at the midway point or at the second half of the season, because if this drags out and they don't come to a decision until week 5 where he has that hearing from Sue Robinson, dude, I have serious concerns as to whether or not Rice will be available in the second half of the season or whether or not this carries over into the playoffs. That's my biggest concern right now. That's the I guess that's the dilemma we have here with this Rashee Rice situation, and kind of wondering what the holdup is and what the major disagreement is here. Jacob on Instagram says, I don't want to watch male cheerleaders. Yeah, a lot of people are reacting to that. I mean, listen, I don't have any opinions on that, honestly, other than if you don't like it, don't watch. I mean, it was during a commercial for crying out loud. So it's not like, I mean, it's not like this was broadcast on TV forcing everyone to watch. Let's settle down a little bit here. All right, that is all the news and notes I have here. Fairly shorter podcast compared to some of the recent ones. We will reconvene on Wednesday. That'll be our last podcast before Friday's game. Just a reminder, no Q&A live chat this Friday because the Chiefs do have a game. We'll do a pregame live chat probably earlier in the day because I will be going to Arrowhead for Friday's game. So just a heads up there. Don't expect any halftime or post-game live streams. There will be a Saturday morning live stream. In fact, this will be kind of early because I do have a crazy day Saturday. But we'll definitely do a podcast recapping the preseason, and I will give you guys my 53-man roster, my prediction for the Chiefs 53-man roster later that day. So be on the lookout for that. Otherwise, I will talk to you all on Wednesday, 7 p.m. Central Time. Join me then. We'll talk about which Chiefs players need to step up the most to make a case for themselves to try to make the 53-man roster. I'm Farzin Vasugian. Thank you all for joining me for this episode of the Chiefs Zone podcast. I will talk to you all on Wednesday. Take care.